The closed network beta test for Sonic Racing Crossworlds has officially come to an end, and I adored every minute of it. I played the game, I was watching streams of it, and despite having only 6 tracks, I never got bored watching or playing it. This game has the potential to be the greatest kart racer of all time, and I have many points to make about the game, both positive and negative. I want Sonic Racing Crossworlds to be the best it can be, so I hope all the strengths and weaknesses shown in the beta are taken into consideration. Let's start with the roster. This game is going to have the largest cast of Sonic characters in a racing game. In the beta we had Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Cream, Shadow, Omega, Eggman, and Zaz. Each character has slightly different stats from one of 4 main classes: speed, handling, acceleration, and power. The karts also have the same stats, and the kart pieces you choose are the biggest influence on the stat bonuses. I tried out every character, and the difference isn't enough to guarantee a win, but the drift was noticeably tighter when I played as Cream instead of Sonic in the same car. There is a 5th stat for boost, which no characters in the beta had a natural higher stat for, and there are 2 options here. Future playable characters will be grouped within the boost class, or the boost is an extra stat without characters in that class. I do want to talk more about speculation for the game in the second half of this video, but for now I want to focus on the beta, so we'll get onto that later. I really liked that you can mix different characters with different karts, and it made for some really exciting experimentation. I didn't get to trial everything I wanted to, but I found that an acceleration character with a handling kart was my preferred build. This game is chaotic with its items, and you'll frequently get hit, so having acceleration felt vital. You can also freely customize your kart with decals and custom colour schemes on top of the part swapping, and this was really fun to play around with. I made a Zazmobile, copyright pending. The closest I can compare this to is Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and I loved the customization there. But unfortunately, the extreme gear wasn't available in the beta, so I am excited to see how they will play, but the customization on those might be more limited because there's less area to put decals on. I assume the extreme gear will be the vehicles with the higher boost stat, which makes me think characters who weren't playable in the boost class will have that stat as well. The controls are really tight and the game feels great to play, and with the handling stat, there were certain tracks where it felt essential. This game's drift is a lot sharper than the other Sonic racing games, and it did take some getting used to, but once I got the hang of it, I was having a blast. The transform mechanic also returns, and again, this controls very differently. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is one of my favourite kart racers of all time, so I never got entirely used to how different the plane and boat feel in Crossworlds. The plane has a much different air drift now, allowing you to drift in every direction, giving far greater maneuverability. Hitting the centre of one of these boost rings will give you a bigger boost too, so you've got to make sure you're drifting optimally to hit every boost ring in the centre, as well as being able to get the drift boost. The boat jumps every time you do a drift, letting you get an extra trick when you land, but the jump will also carry your momentum. So if you release your drift too early on a corner, or try to jump and get tricks in a bad spot, you'll be going straight into the wall without being able to course correct your path. When you play Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, do you feel much of a difference when you go underwater, gliding through the air, or on the anti-gravity tracks? I don't. A lot of the time I don't even realise the kart has changed, especially the anti-gravity and underwater. And almost all of the glider sections are so short that it doesn't have any lasting feel. So having such unique controls for the transformations in Crossworlds is a really nice touch. It's not enough to master drifting underground and performing tricks on ramps. You have to master all the transformations to have a good chance at winning. And I can see the skill ceiling is going to be high with Crossworlds because of it. I've talked a lot about the drifting without detailing it, and Crossworlds has changed how the drift works. On paper, it is the same as usual. It still has the switch drift, letting you easily change which direction you drift at the cost of resetting the charge for the drift boost. as well as the 3-tier drift boost, which gets stronger depending on how long and sharp your drift is. But now there's a really nice visual which lets you know how close you are to the next level of boost. This changed the way I approached certain sections. I was holding drifts longer than I normally might have because I could see I'm almost at level 2 or 3, and most of the time I crashed because of it, but in other times I managed to get the stronger boost. It's such a small detail, but it adds a lot of risk versus reward that wouldn't be present without it. The rings from Team Sonic Racing also return, and this has become a bit of a kart racing staple feature nowadays. Collect rings or coins or Wumpa to increase your top speed. You can collect up to 100 rings, and every time you collide with racers, or hit the wall, or get hit with an item, you lose rings. To stay at optimal speed, you have to play perfectly. Everything I've spoken about in terms of mechanics and gameplay has been really positive, but the biggest criticism I have is the items. They're all pretty decent power-ups individually. You have the rocket fists that act as your typical red shell and green shell, the white wisp as a boost, but there are also some really unique ones like the void, which sucks in all nearby rings and items, the shuriken that slices your car in half, and the whirlwind, which creates a large area of effect hitbox, perfect for defensive play at the end of the race. But the items all feel ridiculously powerful. At the end of lap 3, they all get spammed. It suddenly becomes a game of chance, hoping you have the right items at the right time, rather than one of skill. And there are definitely elements of this in Crash Team Racing and Mario Kart 8 especially. If you manage to pull a bullet bill like when you're 7th in the race, and then somebody else has used the shock, and now everybody is small and you speed past them, exiting the bill when you're not miniature, that's a guaranteed win. That is luck with the items. But with Sonic Racing Crossworlds, it feels like this is happening every single race. Whereas in Mario Kart, most of the time, if someone is skilled, they will always be front running the tracks. Everything with the controls and mechanics feels like it's begging for high-level skilled play, but the item balancing completely neuters that. It was still really fun in these moments, and I'd love to have something akin to Super Smash Bros. 4's Online, where you have a full fun room that lets you have a silly, non-serious match. But if this is going to be every single online race and in the ranked playlists, it's going to get tiresome. The worst of these items is the magnet, which has a ridiculously large range, and if you drive through it, it slows you down. But when two of these are placed near each other, or sometimes right next to each other, it becomes near impossible to avoid, especially on narrow paths and shortcuts. The range on this item needs to be nerfed. And this gets worse with the gadgets. I haven't spoken about the gadgets yet, but I really like the idea of them. These are all little buffs which... The rain is so loud. I can't think with the rain, man. I'm just gonna have to power through this. These are little buffs to your kart which will enhance either the item play, mechanical ability, or the ring strength. The gadgets take up either 1, 2, or 3 slots, and this made deciding what to equip more fun. Do you want to have lots of smaller buffs to make everything slightly better, or 2 large buffs but they're more situational? The mechanical ones were the most fun for me, letting you trick insanely fast or charging up a level 1 drift boost much faster, allowing for snaking on straight paths as well as charging up to level 3 boosts sooner. The ring-based ones let you increase your pickup cap to 200, increase the ring pickup range, steal rings from your opponents when you bump them, and all of these were fun to play around with. Every time I went on a ring-based build, I was consistently staying above the 90 ring cap, or in the case with the 200 max ring gadget, I was staying at about 170 and above. But the item gadgets really need further testing. You can normally hold up to 2 items, and you can buff it up to 3 items with a certain gadget, and this is absolutely stupid! It really exacerbates the item spam problem that occurs at the end of every single race. The gadgets are awesome additions, and different loadouts will be better for certain tracks, so experimenting with the gadgets with the 6 tracks we had was tons of fun, and I can't wait for the full game with more tracks and more gadgets. I assume there's going to be another beta test in a few months. This first beta didn't even let you play with friends, and it was PS5 exclusive. So I imagine the next will be an open beta with cross-platform, because they need to test the network on multi-platform after all. And I hope that by then, the item balancing is revamped. And I think the easiest way to remedy this situation with the items and rebalance them would be to make it so you can only have 1 item at a time instead of 2, and have the gadget be increasing it to 2 items instead of 3. Finally, I need to discuss the racetracks. These were all really fun, my favourite being the World Museum track. Each track changes by the final lap. Metal Harbor had the rocket launch, the World Museum had the dinosaurs take life, but of course, we know the gimmick of this game is lap 2, and the title name, the Crossworlds mechanic. This is what kept me playing without getting bored. Every single race felt different, going to another racetrack entirely. The lead player gets to choose where lap 2 will take place from an option of 2. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll already be able to guess which of the Crossworld laps were my favourite. I adore Sonic and the Secret Rings. It's a top 5 Sonic game for me, and everyone else is wrong and I'm right. The game is fantastic. So going to Dinosaur Jungle and Pirate Storm was always the highlight of the races for me, and I picked them every single time I was leading the pack. And it does the game so much justice. For example, Dinosaur Jungle recreates the waterfall segment, the aggressive dinosaur, the caves, and finishing off with driving on the back of the Apatosaurus. Seeing Secret Rings get such perfect representation made me so giddy. And sometimes the second lap will become frenzied, which adds more chaos to the race. The 2 I experienced were boost rings everywhere, and another where your drift boosts are rapidly charged to level 4, and these both changed how I approached the races, needing to either keep stable lines and hit each boost ring, or continually chain my drifts to maintain at top speed. I do think these happened a little too often to the point where they weren't as exciting by the end of the beta, so I hope in future, whether that be another beta test or whether that's the full game, that they make the frenzy variations less frequent, as well as adding more variations to what the frenzy can be. The Crossworld Lap 2 also means racers can't spam items just before going into lap 3, which is such a blessing, because if the finish line was littered with items, it would become far less fun on the final stretch. The Crossworld mechanic also means you can vote for your favourite track, but that doesn't guarantee that you're even gonna finish close to the top 3. I always voted World Museum. I found that track absolutely fascinating, and I was pretty good at it. But then I'd get hit with the lava Crossworld lap, with a frenzy variation, and I wasn't very efficient with the plane, so I completely lost the lead. And then I'm going into lap 3 near the bottom spot, which technically is more ideal because the items are so busted. But my point is that you won't be able to maintain the lead just because it's a track that you voted. Those are all my thoughts on the beta of Sonic Racing Crossworlds, and trying to remain more objective about it. This is everything I experienced and thought was noteworthy about the beta to be talking about. Originally this video was going to have some speculation about the game in the second half, but I've decided I want to split these into 2 separate videos. I just worked on a huge 2-hour retrospective of Little Big Planet, so I want to work on some shorter videos for a while. But I also feel like it'll help in separating the 2 discussions about Sonic Racing Crossworlds. If that sounds interesting to you, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because it really helps in YouTube knowing that you enjoyed the content. And with all that being said, thank you for watching and have a nice day.